The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Alar Karis, President of the Republic of Estonia. I request protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome His Excellency Alar Karis, President of the Republic of Estonia, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to be here today, though I wish where circumstances surrounding my first address were different. A year ago, Mr. Secretary General presented this inspiring report, Our Common Agenda, outlining his vision for the next 25 years of global cooperation, and initiated discussions of how to reinvigorate multilateralism and achieve sustainable development goals. I support the goals of the report, and yet it's a Herculean task because the world is torn apart. We witness the constant brutal violation of the core principles of the UN Charter on every continent. The United Nations itself has become a battlefield where some states try to convince the world that the common values we all are obliged to adhere do not exist. The only standard we must follow is the UN Charter, our unique common promise of peace for all nations, large and small, a promise of advancing fundamental human rights, the equal rights of men and women. It is not a choice. It is a collective responsibility to ensure that peace, justice, and human rights prevail. On 24 February, the Russian Federation, a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, attacked the democratic and peaceful sovereign Ukraine. Russia started a war of aggression with a goal to end the sovereignty of its neighbor, overthrow its legitimate government, exterminate Ukrainian nation, and implement its abusive order, impregnated of imperialism, self-interest, and dominance. Russian invasion, including the illegal occupation of Crimea and Russia's prior land grabs in Georgia and Moldova, demonstrate Russia's total disrespect of international law, the rules-based international order, and an assault of a United Charter, every value and principle the United Nations stands for. This brutal and unjustified aggression is the most serious threat to the global peace and security since the end of the Second World War, and challenges the very foundation of UN system, undermining the security of all members of the international community. Some colleagues are hesitant to take sides vis-à-vis Russian aggression. Some argue that this war is between Russia and Ukraine. I see the aggressor and the victim. Legally, as well as morally, there is only one right side to take. Standing in a gray zone encourages the aggressor, undermines this organization, and fuels human suffering. In recent years, we have witnessed devastating human suffering in Afghanistan, Myanmar, Yemen, Syria, Sahel, and the Horn of Africa, just to name a few. The war aggression of Russia makes finding solutions to these conflicts only more difficult, as it has increased food insecurity, adds stress on the global humanitarian relief system, and bolsters economic crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, I visited Ukraine 2 months after the invasion began. The sight was horrific. I lack words to describe the brutality of this scene. The face of war is the same everywhere. Its cruelty will never leave the people who must live through this. Wars and conflicts only bring horror and misery to mankind. As of August 22nd, the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has recorded in Ukraine over 13,000 civilian casualties, with approximately 6,000 killed and nearly 8,000 injured. The actual numbers are significantly higher. Each murder is another evidence of the grave violations of international law by the aggressor. In the strongest terms, we condemn the war crimes committed by Russia in Ukraine. UN Assistant Secretary General of Human Rights reported to the Security Council about credible allegations of forced transfers of unaccompanied children to Russian-occupied territory or to the Russian Federation. We have seen mass graves of tortured civilians. I wonder, are we living in the 21st century? Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I want to pay tribute to the immeasurable resilience of the people of Ukraine. We grieve for the victims of Russia's aggression and stand with Ukraine in ensuring the future of its people and nation. This brave nation is fighting for values set in the UN Charter, the noble cause of freedom, democracy, and human rights. According to the UN Charter, Article 51, helping Ukraine to protect its right to exist is our collective obligation. At the same time, it is disturbing that the United Nations Security Council, a body that bears the chief responsibility for maintaining international peace and security, has been paralyzed and utterly unable to play its role. Russia has abused its veto power to block the Council from adopting any decisions regarding the grave violation of sovereignty and independence of Ukraine. The Security Council lies in the heart of the UN. It is shameful that since February 24, it has adopted only one statement on Ukraine. How many devastating wars will it take to move forward the long overdue Security Council reform? I am grateful that while the Security Council remains paralyzed on Russia's aggression issue, the soul and the conscience of the UN, the General Assembly, has been active and decisive. I recall the overwhelming support for the UN General Assembly resolution on March 2nd that condemned Russia's aggression and urged Russia to immediately and unconditionally withdraw all of its troops from the territory of Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders. We deplore the Russian Federation's failure to implement this resolution, as well as its failure to comply with its legally binding order by the International Court of Justice on the 16th March of 2020, requiring Russia to immediately cease its use of force against Ukraine. Estonia has always been a strong proponent of curbing the absolute veto power, and even more so when it has been used to cover war crimes and crimes against humanity. I am glad that the General Assembly adopted by consensus a landmark resolution, the so-called veto initiative, which provides the UN General Assembly an opportunity to step in when the UN Security Council is unable to act. The question remains, how can we accept the aggressor has a veto power in the Security Council? Excellencies, conflicts and war bring enormous humanitarian crises. Russia's aggression has led to an immense need of resources and aid. Nearly 18 million Ukrainians, 40% of the country's population, are in urgent need of humanitarian assistance. The international support for Ukraine has been heartwarming. The UN is busy helping Ukrainians who didn't need our help before this aggression. To date, Estonia has sent over 20 million euros in humanitarian aid to Ukraine. We have seen an unprecedented massive support of Ukraine from the Estonian private sector, civil society, and citizens. We continue to assist and work on the reconstruction of Ukraine. It needs to begin already now. We call others to join us in this. Conflicts created immense refugee crisis. According to the UN Refugee Agency, the total number of people worldwide who were forced to flee their homes due to conflicts and human rights violations was 89.3 million in 2021. The displacements were driven, for example, by the brutality of Bashar al-Assad regime, conflicts in the Tigray region, and the Taliban's takeover of Kabul. In 2022, this number has already exceeded the milestone of 100 million. Increase is caused by Russia's war of aggression. There are more than 7 million recorded Ukrainian refugees across Europe. Another 7 million have been internally displaced. Estonia has received nearly 55,000 refugees, 4% of our country's population. We ensure social services and basic education to refugees fleeing from war. Estonia has created 1,000 additional places in different education programs for Ukrainian refugee children by opening a new school, the Freedom School. One day its students will be the leaders and rebuilders of Ukraine. Estonian education technology companies are donating their solutions to support Ukrainian schools and pupils whose education has been disrupted by war. Why I'm telling all this? Because our future depends on the youth sitting in the classrooms and on their education. We are made by history. We cannot let the lack of knowledge to define our future. To avoid such a brutality repeat itself, we have to raise awareness of the history of our nations. We need to evade confusions caused by active brainwash and disinformation. We see how ignorance makes it easy for any aggressor to put forward its false narratives. War and conflict, lack of openness bring along extreme violations of human rights. It must be clear that basic human rights are universal, same for all UN members, and cannot be ignored by any government. Special attention should be devoted to ensuring gender equality and right to education. Opportunity to study should not be a wish or a dream at the 21st century. Let me use this tribune to praise the courageous women who have now become the forefront of protest against the Taliban in Afghanistan, to fight for the right to choose their own path and role in the society. It is our profound duty to support the struggle. I call on de facto leaders of Afghanistan to immediately stop harassing the UNAMA Afghan female staff. Respecting universal human rights is not a choice. Neither culture nor religion can be invoked by justify human rights violations. In the same vein, we welcome the release of an assessment report of human rights situation in Xinjiang by Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. The report underscores the serious human rights violations occurring in Xinjiang, which may constitute international crimes, in particular crimes against humanity. This is extremely alarming and requires urgent attention by the international community. Ladies and gentlemen, there remains little dispute over the existential crisis posed by climate change. We witnessed devastating flooding in Pakistan caused by erratic monsoon rains. In solidarity with the people of Pakistan, Estonia provides help to those severely affected. Russia's aggression also brings further pain to those already suffering from the impact of pandemic, conflicts, famine, and climate change. Let me be very clear. This aggression has brought high inflation, global food and energy crisis. The head of the UN World Food Programme has warned that Russia's aggression will lead to the worst food crisis since the Second World War. This physics and in life, the cause triggers a reaction. Russia's aggression triggered the global food and inflation crisis. We have witnessed Russia's occupying forces stealing Ukraine's grain supplies, burning down warehouses and destroying grain fields. Market disruptions are not caused by sanctions. Global food or economic crises are caused by the war Russia started, and Russia can end all this by ending the war. Yet, Russia has no intention to end the war. Instead, the Russian regime decided to escalate. We find it cynical, nuclear threat totally unacceptable. It is a threat to global community. To alleviate this crisis, the EU has launched the Ukraine Solidarity Lanes initiative. It has helped to export over 6 million tons of predominantly agricultural goods from Ukraine. Estonia also welcomes the Black Sea Grain Initiative that was signed in Istanbul on 22nd of July, brokered by the UN Secretary General and President of Turkey. We must keep the international pressure on Russia to monitor Russia's adherence to the deal and its extension. Excellencies, to follow with deep concern the situation is one of the world's largest Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Russia has occupied the plant and turned it into a combat zone. The risk of a nuclear disaster is very real. This power plant should be demilitarized without delay and full control of a plant return to Ukraine. Moreover, it is essential to grant international experts a persistent and unfettered access to the facilities of power plant. I regret that last month Russia also shamelessly blocked the consensus concerning the outcome document of a review conference of a treaty of non-proliferation. Estonia has been vocal in addressing the issue of cybersecurity in the UN. We continue these efforts to elevate cybersecurity as an essential component of the UN's international peace and security agenda. Russia has demonstrated how state-provided malicious cyber tools are used alongside conventional weapons. Russia's cyber attack against the satellite communications of Ukraine on 23rd of February served to prepare and facilitate Russia's on-the-ground invasion. Excellencies, it is our duty to ensure accountability and justice to all levels. Impunity breeds impunity and leads to the new crimes to be committed. It is the utmost importance that there are independent and effective investigations into the atrocity crimes and crimes of aggression committed against Ukraine, also in Syria, Ethiopia, and elsewhere. We must provide justice to victims and bring those responsible for atrocities and genocide to trial. Estonia fully supports the investigation led by the International Criminal Court. We give most serious consideration to the establishment of an independent special court for the crimes of aggression and the compensation mechanisms for the damages caused by the aggression. We support all initiatives attempting to secure accountability. To conclude, the war in Ukraine affects us all. It is our common duty to push back the ugly manifestations of imperialism, colonialism, and racism of Russia. Russia must understand that the road they have taken is disastrous, and the war they have started cannot be won. If we stop caring, if we get tired, if we fall into indifference, the aggressors and criminals will only be empowered. This is not the world where we want to live, nor the world we want to leave to the future generations. The United Nations is and remains the cornerstone of our multilateral, rules-based world order. It is relevant to put to the rest we cannot fail. The UN must emerge from this watershed moment stronger, more united, and more relevant than ever before. Thank you for your attention.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Estonia for the statement just made, and I request protocol to escort His Excellency. And now the Assembly will hear